have a YouTube channel, Jay. Let's go!
Hello again, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of the Good Friends, Better Enemies podcast. My name is Jay. As we continue along our special limited time series event, Wait a minute. Okay, I've been pulled a swerve here. It seems we are going back to our original format. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back, after a long absence, our partner in crime, our buddy, ladies and gentlemen, good old-fashioned Tyrone. Tyrone, how are you doing, pal?
Well, I'm happy to be back, Jay. It's been a minute. Had some things to take care of, but we're getting there. And I'm ready to hop back on this and talk about some good old-fashioned wrestling with you. I do want to take 1 sec though and thank the boys for filling in for me over the last couple of weeks. You guys had some interesting shows there, and I'm kind of glad I didn't have to be part of some of those events.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, it's some of the events that we covered were a little bit out of my wheelhouse in terms of being more modern product. But I do have to thank, Nick from the Universal Wrestling Podcast, as well, of course, as Steve Bourne. And we also had Anthony from the Titantron podcast on, easy for me to say. And we have some plans to have those guys on in the future for some other events. I'm very curious to see where Anthony's going to go with his story arc coming out of the Night of Champions 2011. And of course, we are planning to do a watch along with Nick from the Universal Wrestling Podcast as well. So we are very excited to have some guests along for the ride in the coming weeks and months. And of course, they're going to be with us together. So it'll be fun to do a triple watch along, or, let somebody else book and you and I can take a back seat and just see what somebody else comes up with, and then kind of, pick their brains and pick apart, for better or for worse, what they come up with, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always interesting to hear other people, other than the two of us, with their opinions on what they thought of cards, if they liked them, if they didn't. I know you and I both have certain events that we hold near and dear to our hearts that other people hate. A fun little Thanksgiving tradition in 1996 that you and I both love, but is notoriously hated, as well as WrestleMania 9. Those are two big soft spots for the both of us, but I think we'd have to let other people rebook those ones for us, because I don't know if we would change anything.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk negatively about Survivor Series 96 myself. I think most people universally like that card, but your point is very well taken. And the other thing, too, is, I was just thinking about it while you were talking, is it's kind of fun, especially when we have sometimes some people that are a little younger as bookers on, like, for example, Anthony from the Titantron podcast is younger than both of us. So it's fun for him to kind of wax nostalgic about shows from 2011 or 2012 that it was an era where neither one of us were particularly, obviously we were watching the product, but I wasn't invested to the same degree that I would have been in 96, 97 type thing. So it's fun to get that perspective, and then that might sort of broaden our horizons a little bit as well, right?
Yeah, I didn't realize just how young he was until I listened to that episode. He's 19? So that's almost young enough to be our son there, Jay. That's the age gap there. And yeah, the 2011 through 2000 and probably 15 or 16, not exactly years I even remember. If you asked me, hey, what was the main event of a random battleground or something in that, I would just look you dead in the eye and be like, next question, please.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that might be some fun trivia coming up if we ever get back to trivia notes. Then maybe I'll ask you, what was the main event of Battleground 2014? And then somebody will come up and be like, well, there wasn't a Battleground in 2014. And I'll be like, well, okie dokie. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen,
I didn't even know that. I would have believed you that there was a Battleground 2014 there.
I literally don't know right now as we speak. I just pulled that out of my rear end. I have no idea whether or not there was one or not. So we're both in the same boat. I did want to touch on something real quick, something that dropped on social media last night. Spoiler alert, folks, we are recording on a Thursday afternoon, and something really, really fun happened here in Canada. I did mention it in our group podcast chat with the Counted Out 7 boys, Mike and Tyler. Shout out to them for some great content, especially with the event center with Barrie Wrestling. But it was announced yesterday that Canada's Walk of Fame is finally going to have the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. The excellence of execution, Bret the Hitman Hart, is going to take his rightful place on Canada's Walk of Fame. And Tyrone, I know that Bret Hart's not your favorite, but you definitely, have to give him some credit for finally making it into this prestigious, honor that he's getting and being inducted into the Walk of Fame. I think it's very, very appropriate that he get inducted, and is very well deserved of this honor. What do you think?
I was kind of blown away that it hadn't happened yet because, yeah, we all know Bret Hart, legendary professional wrestler, one of the best workers ever, may not be one of my favorites, but that's beside the point. But when you think Canadian sports heroes, especially, other than Wayne Gretzky or Terry Fox, who the hell are you thinking of really than Bret Hart? Like, I know I'm probably missing a few there, but those are the main ones that come to my mind. So the fact that Bret is finally getting it is a great, great honor. Like, for those of you who don't know what Canada's Walk of Fame is, it's essentially like having the Hollywood Star Walk of Fame in the United States. This is just the Canadian version. We don't put them with little stars on Hollywood Boulevard to do it. There are streets in Toronto where you can see everybody who is there. They have their little plaque on the sidewalk. But I'm blown away that Bret Hart does not have one yet, because I do believe Trish Stratus has one. And to think that, as decorated of an athlete as she is, that she got one before he did, kind of surprised me there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't really know if Trish Stratus has one. She might. You might be right about that. I'd have to go back and have a look. I mean, as long as the Bret Hart Walk of Fame placard isn't too far a walk away from the William Shatner one, then I'm happy. But although, I mean, the further it is to walk, then the more exercise I'll get, which is always a good thing. But with that being said, I just, as I alluded to earlier, I am quite pleased that this has finally happened. And I think you're right. It was a bit of a shock. I do remember that there was some campaigns to put him in years past, but I'd kind of forgotten about it. So it was a bit of a shock to me as well that he hadn't been put in. So we'll see. It's the ceremony is actually going to be airing here on Canadian television in December, and I'm flirting with the idea of maybe even buying tickets for that one.
I have to wonder if maybe his wonderful performance as the genie in the Aladdin plays that he did maybe hindered it a little bit, because Bret Hart, not exactly the best actor. Lonesome Dove can show you that from the 90s, but that's the only thing I can think of that would keep him out of there, is his wonderful acting skills.
Well, I unfortunately never got a chance to go and see a live performance of Aladdin, so I'm not sure if you did either. So I don't know about the reviews, but hey, listen, he was trying a lot of different things.
I did. We went with like a class trip one time, and it was, I can't say this enough, it was not good. It was borderline atrocious. They knew that they were kind of taking the piss out of it. It was aimed at kids, but it was not a good play. I hate to speak ill of Bret Hart knowing that he's getting this honor, but yeah, that's not a good era for him there, bud. Now, if we are talking about wrestlers who deserve honors, though, if we're going to put another one on the Walk of Fame, you know who it's got to be, right? It's got to be our boy, the one that I'm calling to win the Ontario Cup for Barrie Professional Wrestling, and that's none other than the one and only Holden Albright.
Well, that's very fair. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what you think in terms of how it's going to break down to, and why you're so steadfast on Holden Albright as your odds-on favorite.
Well, when it comes to local, independent Ontario professional wrestling, he is the one that I have seen probably more than almost anybody in this bracket. And he's got a crazy gimmick. He's a bigger dude. He's probably along the Michael Elgin size, but nowhere near as jacked. Like, he's strong, but he's not Scott Steiner strong. He wears this really, really cool wolf mask to the ring. He's just a dirty villain. And that's what the world needs in wrestling, is somebody who's going to do whatever it takes to win. And that's going to be Holden Albright. You can take your Mark Wheelers, you can take your Gabriel Fuerzas of the world, and they can all just go shove it up their ass because it is Holden Albright's time.
Well, welcome back, Tyrone. We're very happy to have your visceral opinions about things. And as always, you never pull any punches, which kind of segues me into this week's topic, which is, I know that you find this incredible to believe, but maybe my favorite WCW pay-per-view of all time, WCW Halloween Havoc 1999 from the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. I know that this was a very polarizing time in WCW. 1999, some people really enjoy it. Some people can't stand it. This particular event was the first one booked by Vince Russo and Ed Ferraro when they came over from the World Wrestling Federation. And in my humble opinion, I think 1999 is a very underrated year, especially the early to mid parts of it. I think by the summertime, we started to, the wheels started to fall off a little bit. But I really enjoyed this pay-per-view. I don't really know why. I mean, it's just sort of a nostalgic thing for me. I know it's not the best pay-per-view in the world, but it's just my favorite for one reason or another.
Yeah, I don't know why it would be either, because watching this, I couldn't even, there were times that the commentators were even like, what the hell's going on? Which was very typical of WCW for this era. They didn't even really know what was going on. But when you have, in the middle of your pay-per-view, Medusa walking out with a bottle of cologne in a bikini, trying to shell it, only to dump it on Bobby the Brain Heenan and say that she thinks this whole thing is bullshit, that pretty much sums up this pay-per-view to me right away. She couldn't even remember their names and didn't call them the powers that be. She called them the superpowers.
Yeah, no, it's one step away from the mega powers, which is pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, listen, I completely understand your point. I don't think I was watching it back today to prepare for this podcast, and it's not the best pay-per-view. I don't claim for it to be the best pay-per-view. I just think for me, it's almost like a guilty pleasure, almost like junk food. It's like, chips and pop or, ice cream, bowl ice cream, whatever. It's just kind of satiating to me for some reason. And I just always find it kind of a comforting watch as far as WCW pay-per-views go. So I really enjoy it. But I'm sure that you're going to make it quite a bit better. Of course, we're going off of the booking from the Fall Brawl pay-per-view of 1999, which we covered last month. Tyrone, did you want to maybe give us some backstory in terms of where we are right now in WCW and how we got to the Halloween Havoc pay-per-view?
Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, you rebooked the Fall Brawl one, so you had a couple of things happen that obviously I couldn't go against. I honestly contemplated booking this like WCW at the time where, Jay did a whole pay-per-view. Guess what? None of it matters because the next day on Nitro, that doesn't matter. But coming out of Fall Brawl, we had Berlin going on a bit of a winning streak. He took on Perry Saturn, which they were trying to build up this new version of Alex Wright by having him just go over a lot of people, including bigger names there like a Saturn. We had a unification title match between the TV title and the U.S. title with Chris Benoit taking on the Dogface Gremlin, winning both of the belts. Sid and Flair were in the middle of a big feud. Bret Hart had just become your number one contender, winning a fatal four-way. Harlem Heat were the 9-time tag team champions. I believe we had Hogan and Sting was the main event of the last one, and you had Hogan win. So Hogan was your WCW champion, technically at the end of Fall Brawl. Now, is he the WCW champion entering Halloween Havoc? I don't know, Jay. We'll have to find out.
Yeah, I am very curious to see where you've gone with this because we booked SummerSlam 1993 about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago now we booked that. I believe it was actually our live our book along when we were watching SummerSlam live in person together for the first time in how many years we'd been in the same room together due to COVID and all that kind of thing. And I was very disappointed with how you ended up booking the main event of that particular show.
Yeah, I know. I screwed up and forgot about Hogan and Bret. You could just say it. I screwed up and it didn't hapen. Even
I know,
I
so
can
that's
openly
why.
admit to that. So we'll see. Is there maybe a Hogan Bret match on this? I don't know. Is there, or even either of them even on the card? I don't know. Technically, one of them's the world champ and one of them's the number one contender. So I see where you were going. But did I give it to you? I guess we'll find out.
I guess we will find out. And just to let you know, before we move forward with this was a poll that we put up. The other choices on the poll were the World Wrestling Federation's In Your House Buried Alive pay-per-view, as well as the Live from Madison Square Garden 2015 event, which featured Brock Lesnar versus The Big Show and John Cena versus Seth Rollins in a steel cage. And then, of course, we also had on that card Judgment Day 1998 as the runner-up. So we may or may not book that in the coming weeks to celebrate October pay-per-views. But I just wanted to give a quick plug out to all those folks that took the opportunity to vote and give us their opinions of what we were going to book this week. And we really appreciate you jumping on social media and giving us a like and subscribe and a click and letting us know exactly what you were interested in hearing. So now that we have completed that poll, this is where we stand right now. WCW 1999's offering of Halloween Havoc. Tyrone, are you ready to get into this sucker?
Oh, I'm very ready to get into it and get right back out of it because, goddamn, I did not like it.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Ladies and gentlemen, the opening contest is for the WCW Cruiserweight Championship, and it is Disco Inferno, the champion, retaining the title over Lash LaRue. What do you have for me, pal?
Well, going into Halloween Havoc, coming off of Spring Stampede, whatever the hell it was called, Fall Brawl, that's it. We have a triple threat match for the WCW Cruiserweight Championship with Lash LaRue and Disco Inferno both challenging the champion, Billy Kidman.
Oh, okay. So you have a triangle match, which, triple threat match, but they called them triangle matches, and fatal four-ways were four-way dances in WCW. I think in ECW as well. But, okay, that's fine.
You had Kidman win the Cruiserweight Championship at Fall Brawl, so I'm one of those few people in the world that actually kind of like Disco Inferno. Love the gimmick. Think Glenn Gilberti's a piece of work as a person, but I love the disco gimmick. So I kept it as the match is itself, but with Kidman. Lash LaRue, fine worker, nothing great. Disco Inferno could work, but again, nothing great. But when you put an excellent worker like a Billy Kidman in there, there's a lot more chances for good spots, good chemistry, not just high spots, but like actual mat wrestling as well. So I do have Disco Inferno going over and winning the Cruiserweight Championship, though. I wanted him to still have a title, gets Kidman away from the Cruiserweight scene because we may or may not have to see him inserted somewhere else later. I don't know. He could be the one to challenge for the world title at the end. Spoiler alert. But yeah, Disco Inferno is your winner and new Cruiserweight champion.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. You're booking based on 99 WCW. Every other match was a multi-person match. And of course, the titles meant nothing at this point. Everything was so hot-shotted. And that's not exclusively to WCW either, folks. Talking about the WWF at this point too, titles were so rapidly hot-shotted. Tag champions were changed sometimes 2-3 times a month. The World Championship was a hot potato as well. The Intercontinental Championship, don't even get me started. So with WCW, you have the same sort of thing. You started off the year with the finger poke of doom. So to me, the championships honestly were at the point where they were so devalued that, listen, we all know that they're ultimately props to help get stars over and to have a device to fight and to wrestle over and create programs about. And that's what the championships are designed to do. But when you completely devalue the championships to this point, having Billy Kidman win the title at Fall Brawl and then drop it to Disco at Halloween Havoc, I think in 99 would be considered a long title run. So I'm fine with this.
Yeah, you put it perfectly with all the hot shotting that was going on. Like, I honestly could have had Kidman technically drop the title on the Nitro after Fall Brawl to Disco and kept this match the same. But like I said, I thought it would be a much better work rate if you have Billy Kidman in there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I didn't think the original match on the card, Disco versus Lash LaRue, was less necessarily that bad a match, but definitely adding the wrinkle of Billy Kidman in there probably would have elevated the match. Actually, not probably, it would have elevated the match. So yeah, I'm good with this. It's a multi-person match to start off the card. I'm assuming we're going to get a couple more on here, but if you don't have anything else on that one, I'm ready to go on to the next one. How about you, pal?
Move on up, bud.
All right, so the next match on the card is a street fight for the vacant WCW World Tag Team Championships. Harlem Heat, Booker T and Stevie Ray defeated the Filthy Animals, Billy Kidman and Conan, and the First Family, Brian Knobbs and Hugh Morris, with Jimmy Hart at ringside. Watched this match about an hour ago, and two referees, a pinfall in the back and then a pinfall in the ring. I mean, it was confusing enough for the
this
live.
This match was the definition of a clusterfuck.
Well,
that's what it was.
It was confusing enough when you're watching it on television as a member of the pay-per-view audience. I mean, in the arena itself, you don't have the commentary to help, kind of cover for this stuff. It was a cluster. So I really hope you change this one.
Well, considering the way that Harlem Heat won the match was by throwing a papier-mâché mummy on top of, I believe, Brian Knobbs or Hugh Morris, one of the two, and getting the pin that way, this match is not on the card. The next match is for the United States Championship of the World, and it is the crippler Chris Benoit going one-on-one and defending his newly unificated United States Championship, easy for me to say, against Sting.
So we have the unified champion, Chris Benoit, going up against Sting. I'm a little surprised that you booked this the way you did, but I mean, it would be a great match. No doubt about that. I mean, Sting versus Benoit. Sorry, go ahead.
And the one thing that I wanted to stay away from is I hated that stupid thing where Hogan's music plays, doesn't come out. Sting's music plays, he comes out. Hogan comes out, whispers something to him, lays down. That's it. It was a work shoot that nobody has ever really confirmed or denied anything that was actually going on then. Was it supposed to happen? Was it not supposed to happen? Nobody actually really has said anything about it. I've tried to look online. You can believe either what Russo says or what Hogan says, but let's be real, those aren't the most honest men in professional wrestling to listen to. So I pretty much decided we are not doing that stupid bullshit angle during this whole show. It doesn't exist. So you have the newly heel Sting taking on Chris Benoit, where the Revolution was one of the hottest acts going on. They were kind of teasing some dissension, but they'd still be together for a while. So I thought, why not put two incredible workers together for the U.S. Championship, make it the work rate title again. Not that it wasn't, but let's put some real big credibility to it by having a main eventer like Sting in there.
Yeah, and I'm all for that. I get that 100%. I'm all for having Sting, the established main event, basically, face of WCW. You can make an argument for Flair, and I guess you could make an argument for Goldberg or Hogan at this point in '99. But the mainstay, the guy that never left, the guy that was there through thick and thin, Sting, was the face of WCW in my eyes. And having him go up against Chris Benoit obviously would elevate a Benoit who was climbing the ladder. I guess my only question is, based on the way that we booked Fall Brawl, I was kind of thinking you might do a blow-off between Luger and Sting because Luger swerved Sting and cost him the championship opportunity. So I'm all for you doing, what you've done here, but I don't really know where we end up with Sting and Luger at this point.
That got settled on Nitro the next night, bud. Luger ends up injured and is not on this card. Sting has taken him out the Nitro after Fall Brawl, beat him half to death with the baseball bat. Off TV. Nobody needs to see him.
That's fine.
The fact that he was also just called the total package at this point. No, your name's Lex Luger. You're not this Adonis stripper in your fucking tearaways that you think you can just pose and do whatever the hell you want and get 40-year-old Miss Elizabeth to wet her panties all over you. Nobody else cares, bud. On to the next. You don't exist to me right now.
All right, fair enough. I mean, I'm fine with that. If that's your booking, then that's your booking, man. I'm totally fine with that. And I'm actually good with as I said, with the Sting Benoit match. It would have been a hell of a match. I can kind of picture some of the spots and transitions right now in my head. So I'm all for it.
It's a catch stand wrestling match, complete mat technician versus mat technician, submission specialist versus submission specialist. At the end of the day, Sting goes for the Scorpion Deathlock. Benoit is able to roll him up, kind of kicks out of the two. Then we go into a series of Germans, flying headbutt off the top rope into a crossface. Benoit retains clean. Okay.
Yeah, I have no problem with that whatsoever. That's fine with me. Yeah, I am 100% good with that. And then, of course, as we've talked about so many times on this show, when we do these rebookings, that when you have somebody who's coming up on the roster like Benoit was at this point, it's not going to hurt Sting any whatsoever to do the job to Benoit clean. So I'm 100% fine with this.
Yeah. All right, cool. I don't have anything else to say about that one unless you want me to keep yelling about Lex Luger.
No, I'm fine. I'm perfectly good with moving on. The next match on the card is Eddie Guerrero defeating Perry Saturn by disqualification. What have you got for me, bud?
I didn't touch this one. I actually enjoyed this matchup, so it's staying. Even the shitty disqualification finish, nothing is changing.
Yeah. I just watched this match. I mean, to me, Eddie Guerrero versus Perry Saturn is a solid match. I had no problem with this match whatsoever. I would have preferred a different finish because I just much akin to what we were talking about with the multi-man matches and hot potato, title swerves and title switches. I feel like so often we got, disqualification finishes for matches, especially on pay-per-views. I mean, this one isn't too bad with those in terms of what actually happened in canon. But I mean, if you look at Nitro, I think every single Nitro, I can't think of one Nitro actually from the top of my head right now where there wasn't some sort of a crazy run-in brawl finish, especially during the height of the NWO. I don't think other than maybe the Hogan Goldberg match in July of 1998, I can't think of a match that actually had a conclusion during the end of Nitro. So, yeah, I'm just kind of over disqualification and run-ins at this point in the wars.
Well, to go back to Lex Luger, I'm pretty sure the Lex Luger Hulk Hogan title match was a finish because Luger ended up winning the title.
Yeah, so that's two out of how many. I have a pretty good memory with this time frame, and I know you do as well. I can't think of, other than those two matches, any other Nitros where there was just a match with a clean finish or some sort of finish. It so often was just a big schmoz or a big brawl. So, no, I'm fine with this. I mean, I'm glad you kept the match on the card, but I would have preferred a clean finish myself.
That's fine. I don't mind the DQ finishes from time to time and the stupid schmozes, but like you said, I don't want every single match to be like that. One, maybe even two on a pay-per-view is fine, but other than that, give me definitive winners constantly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, unless you're keeping the feud going, which obviously this is going to continue after this pay-per-view. If you're blowing off an angle, I don't want to see disqualification finish.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But I think it's time to move on there, my friend.
All right, pal. Well, next up on the card, we have Brad Armstrong, who I have to say I forgot was on this card and was very happy to see him defeating Berlin. Now, again, I'm just going to get on my soapbox here for a second. We had just debuted Berlin. Now, obviously, in my booking, he went over, I believe it was, I don't recall who I had him.
Saturn.
That's right. Okay, so I had him going over Saturn. I think he originally faced Hacksaw Jim Duggan on the pay-per-view at Fall Brawl 99 in Canada, and he was supposed to face Buff Bagwell, but Hacksaw came out and made the save when Buff was, I don't know if it was a shoot or not, but he wasn't at the building. So they're building up this new character, this debut, and I know that you said you had him on a bit of a winning streak, but here you have Brad Armstrong, who great worker, but not really doing a whole lot in 99, and he's going up and defeating Berlin. I mean, this booking makes no sense to me in canon. What did you come up with?
Well, I can tell you that we don't have the thing that made you pop, and there is no Armstrong brothers on this show whatsoever. So next up, I have Berlin going one-on-one with the dog-faced gremlin, Rick Steiner.
Really? That's
I mean, okay, so you had him beat Saturn, which is an established name. I want to see this character keep going. I want them to strap the fucking rocket to him, because we all know Alex Wright is a decent worker. This was not the best gimmick, but you had somebody like the Wall there with him as the bodyguard. So when you have a man of that size, you shouldn't be losing for the most part at all, because you have that insurance policy with you. You put him up against Rick Steiner. Rick Steiner is another one of those legends that this is not going to hurt him at all. He is just trying to help a younger star with a new character get over, and we can always keep the feud going. Like, I believe it was the following month, Berlin actually fought Vampiro in a dog collar match. Wouldn't it make more sense to have the dog-faced gremlin face Berlin in a dog collar match so you can keep the feud going? And then if you choose to end the winning streak there, you can give Rick his win back. But that was my mentality behind this one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of a weird match to me. Like, just on paper, the dog-faced gremlin Rick Steiner versus Berlin. I guess also because they were both heels, but then again, I guess Saturn was a heel when he faced.
And is it really any weirder than fucking, what one was it, Brad or Scott? I don't even remember which Armstrong it was, making a random appearance on this pay-per-view against Berlin. To me, that's a thunder match at best.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess in my head, I would have preferred to see Berlin go up against, some sort of a white meat baby face. Like, maybe go up and go over Buff Bagwell at this event or something. But I understand where you're coming from. And if you're building to that dog collar match at the following month's pay-per-view, then I'm fine with it.
See, sometimes there is reason behind my madness. You just need to let me explain it.
Every once in a while, yeah, you put the pieces together. I like it.
Well, that's pretty much where it ends, because we're not going to have many pieces to put together for the rest of the show. I'll tell you that.
You usually have like one stroke of brilliance and then it falls apart.
Well, then it's all down here from here. All downhill from here, kids. Sorry about that one.
Yeah, just spoiler alert, folks. Kurt Hennig's going to win the WCW Championship tonight. He won the Royal Rumble in 2002, and who knows what else is going to happen in between. But anyhow, the next match on the card is Rick Steiner going up against Chris Benoit for the WCW World Television Championship. We know this match isn't happening, so what do you have for us?
The next matchup on the card is Harlem Heat defending their WCW Tag Team Champions. Tag Team Championship. No, sorry, let me rephrase that. Harlem Heat did lose their titles on Monday Nitro a week prior to this. So that is being kept true to the Filthy Animals. But I am not stripping the Filthy Animals of the tag titles because they can't defend. There's really no point in stripping a team of a tag team title when one person can be subbed in for another member of the group. Would you ever see it, say DX or the NWO or the fucking Freebirds, one of them can't defend the titles, all of a sudden they're being stripped? No, they sub somebody else in there. So it's Harlem Heat challenging the Filthy Animals for the tag titles, and it's Conan and Kidman. Just taking away the fucking first family, because that was always the dumbest group ever to me. I don't know whose idea was to put Hugh Morris and Brian Knobs together and be like, yeah, that's a fucking tag team right there. They can do whatever the hell they want. No, they can't. They've proven it before. If you watch the original match, Brian Knobbs tries to hop over the barricade and almost falls and tries to cover it by making it look like he was doing a clothesline. They cannot do anything together, so they're out.
No, don't sugarcoat it. Tell me how you really feel, pal.
I love, and you know that I love the Nasty Boys. I love Brian Knobbs, but my God, they did not have the chemistry. It was just like, oh, we have these guys under contract. Oh, we have Jimmy Hart. Okay, let's call them a family and put them together.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think it was an ill-conceived tag team. And I think that, there wasn't a lot of chemistry there. I mean, for the purposes of doing like hardcore matches or these Falls Count Anywhere type matches, I guess so. I mean, if you'd ever done maybe like a WCW, hardcore tag team championship, I could have seen that maybe. And they had enough people on the roster to do it. But in terms of doing just tag team matches, without stipulations, then I don't really see them being that great a team. I mean, especially coming off of the Nasty Boys with Knobs and Sags, it's kind of hard to sub, Sags out with anybody. So yeah, I'm with you on that. But I'm interested to see where you go with this booking of this tag team championship match. Who goes over and how do we get there?
Well, first of all, can you imagine if we actually had a tag team hardcore division and tag team hardcore championships? I mean, I can fully imagine it because there was a fucking belt for everything, so I'm surprised we didn't get it. My brain is now going to places it shouldn't, and I am probably going to introduce those titles at some point on a card. But I have the Filthy Animals going over. I don't see the need to hotshot the tag titles within a week of each other. Harlem Heat, without a doubt, in my opinion, the most decorated tag team in WCW history. At this point, they were 9-time tag champs. When they won it on the original card here, it made 10. I feel like that's the only reason they gave it to them is because they wanted them to be 10-time tag team champions before they made Booker T the new face of the company. But they didn't need it. It's nice to see that young upstarter Conan get something there in a tag team. Conan and Kidman, not exactly the greatest tag team, but we all know that it was supposed to be Conan and Mysterio. Mysterio's apparently injured. Sub in Billy Kidman, which is totally great because he's a high flyer. He can do all the same things. He's part of the Filthy Animals. So I have them winning. It's a screw job finish. I hate to tell you that. But what's her name? Tori Wilson comes out, distracts Stevie Ray with the video camera, making it seem like she wants to make a quote-unquote video with him, if you know what I mean. He's all torn, like, what do I do? Oh, my God, she's hot, but my brother. All of a sudden, he's just kind of like a deer stuck in headlights staring at this beautiful girl who's flirting with him. Turns around, ends up getting kicked in the face by Kidman. Conan hits the Tequila Sunrise. That's it. Match is over.
Yeah, that sounds about right for 99 WCW. I'm fine with that. I mean, I'm glad you kept the titles on the Filthy Animals. I personally don't know if I would have taken the titles off of Harlem Heat like they had happen in Canon Nitro the week before. I maybe would have kept the titles on the Harlem Heat for a while, but your point is taken. I mean, it wouldn't be too long after this that Booker T would, kind of split off and become the face of the company. It would be less than a year before he'd win the title from Jarrett at Bash at the Beach 2000. Of course, both Harlem Heat members had already had singles careers. You'd had Booker T for the better part of 1998 be one of the mainstays in the mid to upper card, having that best of 7 tournament with Chris Benoit, and of course, wrestling Bret Hart on pay-per-views and things of that nature. And of course, Stevie Ray was in the NWO. So there was precedent from the breakup. I'm glad that we did get this final run of them together in 1999 and into 2000. So I guess maybe you could make a little bit more pomp and circumstance of having them win their 10th title, maybe have it at the Starrcade or something like that a few months later. So for the purposes of you having the Filthy Animals win the championships and keep it on them, again, I'm glad that you had them retain just for a little bit of continuity in the title picture.
Yeah, the one thing that always confused me about the Filthy Animals was, are they supposed to be heels or faces? Do you know? Because I don't.
I think that they were supposed to be, that Monday Night Wars late 90s, early 2000s kind of, oh, we're going to act like heels but be baby faces. I personally never really cared for the faction. I thought it was whatever to me. I mean, I could take it or leave it. I felt like a lot of the factions at this time in WCW were really just kind of thrown together. My favorite was probably the Revolution, but the Filthy Animals, I mean, whatever. I think it was a thing that it was that. Sorry, go ahead.
The filthy animals to me were just Conan and Ray in a team, and then they looked like they were part of a team together. Then you have Eddie Guerrero, who doesn't dress like them at all, and he wears his normal tights. And then you have Kidman, who's still just walking around in jean shorts and a beater. Like they were not that group that was all in NWO colors or anything like that. They were just four dudes who were kind of thrown together that were like, yeah, I guess we're friends. We can work together.
Yeah, I mean, I think like in terms of maybe similarities, like you obviously have some commonality with Guerrero, Mysterio, and Conan, all being Latin, which makes a lot of sense for them to be together if they're going through their lineage and heritage and stuff. And also, I mean, Conan and Eddie Guerrero to me kind of had that similar kind of like lie, cheat, and steal attitude. The odd man out for me is Kidman. Like, I don't know why Kidman was in that group at all. I mean, especially at that point when he had Torrie Wilson on his arm, like you could have very easily had him broken off as a single star. And I'd argue right now, just thinking off the top of my head, I'd make an argument that had you broken Kidman off and had Torrie Wilson with him and continued on and built him along for the better part of 99 and then into 2000, that he might have been a much bigger star going into the summer of 2000 than had he, stayed with the Filthy Animals like he did.
Yeah, but I feel like the whole point of putting him in the Filthy Animals was honestly just to get Torrie Wilson in there because they wanted some kind of eye candy in the group. They had what was the one, Tigress? Was that the name of the other one that was in the Filthy Animals at one point?
Yeah, that's right.
So they just always seemed like they needed to have that female eye candy in these stables, whether it be Tigress, Miss Hancock in, I believe she was in the Millionaires Club at some point, wasn't she? Or even Elizabeth in the NWO. Like, you know what I mean? They always seem to have the female there. So I honestly think that was why Kidman was in the group.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I think that at this point, the booking was already starting to become a little bit confused. But I do think at this point, going back to my original point about this particular pay-per-view, I really enjoy this pay-per-view for a number of reasons. And I think maybe one of them that I just thought of is that at this point, I feel like WCW was maybe still at the point where you could pull the nose up. The booking wasn't that far out of whack or that far out of this universe that you couldn't make sense of it and put it back on track. I feel like even a month after this at the Mayhem pay-per-view, it was already so far beyond any kind of realism or continuity that I think that this particular pay-per-view just has that kind of kernel where you could still put things back on track. And the Filthy Animals are an example of that. I mean, they're trying to build to something right now in terms of having a feud. Ric Flair was involved with them as well. Ric Flair was involved with a couple of different angles on this show. But, I mean, I just feel like if you look at this card as a whole, this is probably the point of no return for WCW.
Yeah, this pay-per-view is widely regarded as the beginning of the end for WCW, and it's pretty much for everything you just said. But if you want to look at the next pay-per-view, I believe you said it was Mayhem, the one with the title tournament. If you look at the bracket of that tournament, going off of what you just said, Billy Kidman went surprisingly far in that. I think he made it to, I guess it would have been the quarterfinals, was the round right before the pay-per-view itself. And he made it all the way to that. So they definitely saw something in him. Now, whether or not that was Russo and Ferrara who saw it, or that was Bischoff who saw it before, or Bischoff after, I don't know, because he never really seemed to get that final push. Like, he had his feud with Hogan, really didn't do anything for him. I hate to say it, but when you're going into a feud with Hogan and all he does is look at you and go, well, that doesn't work for me, brother. Well, then you're probably not going to go anywhere. But yeah, this era was weird because You could have still ran so much with characters like the Filthy Animals, the Revolution, Berlin, Harlem Heat could have gone for a longer time. You could have done something with the Steiners. We have all these bigger names yet that we haven't even seen yet, like a Goldberg, a Hogan, a Ric Flair. They're all older, but they're all still really, really able to go. And as we would see as the year would progress and into the next year, where did it lead us? It led us to Ric Flair in a mental institution dancing in a bathrobe.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't disagree with anything that you're saying here. I think that one person that we neglected to mention that we discussed at the top of the show is, again, Bret Hart. I mean, Bret Hart hadn't gotten to that point in WCW. I don't think that he was past the point, again, to steal a phrase from this pay-per-view, past the point of no return. I don't think that Bret Hart, the bloom was off the rose. He had so much to contribute, and I honestly think that had the concussion injury at Starrcade in 1999 not happened, I think maybe there might be an argument to be made that WCW might have been in a completely different direction had he been on top in terms of his ability to carry the company. I think that he was at that point where he was ready to take the reins. We forget about Bret, that he, a couple of weeks before this, he had that match with Chris Benoit in Kemper Arena and Kansas City, Missouri, to honor Owen Hart, which was one of the best matches he had in the last several years. And so that to me is indicative of how much he had still left in the tank in terms of being a really phenomenal performer. And I definitely think that he was at the point where we were ready to really pull the trigger on him in terms of going to the future, into the new millennium with WCW.
Oh, I 100% think that he could have been the face of the company. I just don't think that it really would have changed much for them. I still think that by that point it would have been too little, too late, and he would have been gone. All it really would have done to me is you had Sid at this time being called the Millennium Man. What, is Bret Hart just going to become the Millennium Man? Is that it? He's going to be the face of the company, which is great. And yes, he's a way better worker than almost anybody else in there. But by the time that they finally put the strap on him, or he starts to get injured, like you said, a couple of months after this, if he hadn't gotten injured and he made it into 2000, would it have mattered? I don't think so, because they were already about to do Ready to Rumble. They were already going to put David Arquette as the world champion. Like, all these things that in their minds were like, oh, this is a great idea. Oh, this will get us this publicity. Oh, this will get us this. All it did was slowly help kill the company.
Yeah, I you know what? I can't argue with that. I don't know that Bret Hart not being injured and being, on top of the card through the better part of 2000 would have made much of a difference in terms of the booking. And in fact, in hindsight, maybe it's better for Bret to kind of have left the company as an in-ring performer when he did. I don't know what we would have been kind of looking at in terms of matches and things of that. I mean, can you imagine Bret Hart versus David Arquette for the title? I mean, I'm with you on that. I don't know necessarily how much of a difference it would have made. I guess my point was more going into 2000. I felt like it was, first of all, I think it was long overdue for Bret to be given that opportunity to be put in that position. I think it should have happened in 98. But at the same time, he was never really tested as that guy in WCW because of all the people ahead of him. I had the Hogans, the Savages, the Pipers, the Goldbergs, even at that point. So I'm just curious to see, playing devil's advocate, what would have happened had he been given that opportunity to carry the company, and had he not been injured at the end of 1999, what it would have looked like for him in the beginning of 2000.
It probably would have been him teaming up with Tom Green and the other guy from Organized Crime to take on Vampiro and the Insane Clown Posse.
Maybe so. I don't know. Yeah, who knows where they would have went with that. But anyhow, I guess we're ready to go on to the next one. If you are, sir.
Oh, yeah, I think we sidebarred enough there. Let's keep going.
Absolutely. Let's go on to, well, it's the total package. Lex Luger going up against Bret the Hitman Hart, and he defeated Bret by submission, which is a real sentence, ladies and gentlemen. You've already told me that the total package is not on this card. I'm a little disappointed Elizabeth isn't, because watching this show back, she looked incredible. But we digress. What is the next match on the card?
Well, don't you worry your pretty little head there, my friend. I still gave you an incredible looking specimen here. And that is, he is the stuff. Buff Daddy, Buff Bagwell, going one-on-one with that Tennessee redneck, Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah, this makes all the sense. I mean, we had just seen Jarrett debut. I believe it was the Nitro previous in Philadelphia. Makes all the sense to have this match. You know, he'd laid out Buff Bagwell the night before or the week before.
Yeah, and on the actual pay-per-view, they had a whole segment where Buff was in the ring calling out Jarrett. And he didn't, and like they didn't even have a match. They just got into it, and then Luger showed up and tried to take out Jarrett because he accused him of hitting Elizabeth with a guitar on Nitro. And I was like, what? Why are we doing this? Why is this just not a match right now?
Did you see the guitar shot that Luger tried to hit?
Oh boy,
Jarrett
did
with?
I! Yeah, and it barely even nothing happened, so he just smashed it on the turnbuckle after.
No, but I'm just like I'm wondering because he hit him with the neck of the guitar with a lack of better.
Was it the neck or was it the neck or the butt?
I think it was the neck, and it just I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure that part of the guitar is not gimmicked.
No, because it did not shatter at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I
taking lessons from the Honky Tonk Man, a la the build to WrestleMania 3.
Oh, I'm sure Jake Roberts is not happy with you for bringing that reference up. But yeah, I got Jarrett and Bagwell. It is what it is. It's not a great match, but it's here to fill some time. And I got Jeff Jarrett going over. He's the newer person in the company. Why would we kill his momentum right away?
No, I'm 100% on board with this. It makes all the sense in the world to me. Again, Buff Bagwell at this point is fairly established. I mean, this is the first time he'd been a face for quite a while. But he was over. I think he's more over than people give him credit for in 1999. I think he was on the trajectory to be higher on the card. I can't see him as a long-term main eventer or face of the company.
No.
But I think definitely he was really over.
Yeah, he was definitely the upper mid-carder. And to the point that you could really tell that this was 1999. I meant to bring this up at the beginning. You know how every single WCW pay-per-view starts off with Shivani and Heenan talking for about 10 minutes before they do anything?
Yeah.
If you look at the crowd in between there is a bunch of people with just the super penciled in goatees that Buff Bagwell had and the slicked back hair. And I was like, oh my God, this was fashion at this time. But I swear to God, if you go back and watch, tell me that it's not Lance Hoyt sitting behind the commentators and he's been time traveled back there because he looks the exact fucking same. And I swear to God, it's him.
Yeah, I don't know. I was starting to wonder if this particular pay-per-view was sponsored by Fubu or Lugs based on some of the stuff we saw on fashion stage. Are those still brands? I don't even know.
I have no idea. I know that back in 1999, 13, 14-year-old Tyrone knew all about them and was definitely wearing the kind of clothing that was popular at the time that I wouldn't really be caught dead wearing now outside of my house. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Fuck, I haven't heard Lugs in forever. I don't think they still exist. Fubu might, but I don't think Lugs does.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's hard to say. And I'm not going to research it either, to be honest. So somebody out there is interested to find out, then by all means, have a look and drop us a line in the comments section. We're very curious at some point to see whether or not these companies still exist. But with that being said,
let us know if there was a Battleground 2014, because again, we don't care enough to look at that either.
We have a whole laundry list of things that we're like, well, maybe one day we'll find out, but it's not a burning question in either one of our minds. Yeah, I'm going to move on with this one, pal. I think that you did a good job on that. The next match on the card is supposed to be Sting going up against Hulk Hogan for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. And of course, it was 3 seconds long. Sting defending and defeating Hulk Hogan. What do you have for me on this one?
Yeah, we covered this. This isn't happening. That whole gimmick didn't happen, in my opinion. We've already seen Sting on the card. He's not the champ, so we know he's not in the main event. So I completely got rid of this whole thing. And the next match on the card is something that I can't believe I am saying out loud. But it is Goldberg going one-on-one with Sid. Because my God, I actually liked this match. It was hard hitting. The fact that Sid's out there with like all the blood still in his mullet, it was I liked it. It was just two powerhouse dudes beating the living shit out of each other. I feel like Jay is genuinely speechless that I am saying that I like a Sid Vicious and Bill Goldberg match. And that is justifiably so, because I don't think I have ever said a good word about either of them on this. I kept the match. The only thing that I changed is that we are not getting that technical knockout victory of Goldberg beating the living hell out of Sid and leaving him for dead. I actually have Sid going over, and this will have championship ramifications. It's not a U.S. title match like it was on the original card, because obviously we've had Benoit and Sting for the U.S. title. So now we have Sid and Goldberg. Goldberg's going to lose to Sid, and I'm calling it a number one contenders match. So Sid Vicious will be your number one contender for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship coming out of Halloween Havoc 1999. Do you have anything to add to me on that one there, homie?
I do, yeah. Sorry, I was just freshening my cup of coffee while you were talking. I thought I had a little more time than I did. It is not a surprise to me, actually, that you kept this match on the card, because going back and watching it, I thought it was maybe the best match on the actual card. Yeah, I mean, obviously, two powerhouse guys. I like the idea of you seeing Sid, doing color before the match and just yelling, "Let it bleed, let it bleed."
Oh, that was hilarious.
Yeah.
And I can't believe I'm agreeing with you on this at all, but yeah, this was the best match on the card.
I think it was the most compelling anyways. I mean, you'd had some build up on this. My only question is, what kind of happened with the Goldberg, or sorry, the Sid and Ric Flair stuff that we had done the month previous? Did we blow that off on a Nitro as well, or is there anything that's going to build up to that down the road? Or
It's been blown off. It was blown off on a Nitro. I kind of went into this one like with the notes in front of me of what happened, but I also knew that where we were going from here, nothing mattered. Russo was going to completely change everything, and that's kind of where I was. I was starting fresh to a degree with some people.
yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't have anything much to say about this match. I mean, it was a really, really solid match. I mean, it was just what you'd expect out of these two. To me, it's kind of like, we just did a list last week of the top 7 Brock Lesnar matches of 2012 to 2019. And we were talking about a couple of different scenarios with Brock Lesnar. And I was talking about WrestleMania 33 with Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar. And that's the perfect way to book those two going up against each other. It was a, 7 to 9 minute hard hitting match with, spots through the barricade and power spots and this and that. And I think that's kind of like the same thinking that I have towards this particular match is, if you're going to book Goldberg versus Sid, this is the way to do it.
Yeah, I can't argue that. I mean, going back to your Brock Lesnar Goldberg booking, I think the best way that they booked them was the fucking Survivor Series in Toronto 90-second match. Because that was just fantastic. No one saw that coming, so that was the best booking of that. In my opinion.
Yeah, that wasn't a bad way to start the angle. I completely agree with you. But in terms of blowing it off, I think that match at WrestleMania 33 was the way to do it. For me, anyways. I wouldn't have wanted to see a blow off in a 90-second pin like that, for me.
Yeah, all right. That's your opinion. I respectfully decline it, but it's okay.
All righty. Well, that's very kind of you, sir. I appreciate your restraint. The next match on the card is supposed to be Goldberg versus Sid in a technical winning by technical knockout for the United States Championship. Now, obviously, we just discussed this match. It's not happening. So what's the next match on the card, pal?
Next match on the card, man. What's the next one on the original one? And I'll let you know where we're at.
Oh, the next match on the card is Diamond Dallas Page with Kimberly Page defeating the Nature Boy Ric Flair in a strap match.
Next match on the card is a strap match with Diamond Dallas Page defeating Nature Boy Ric Flair. Match stays the same. It told a great story, and I even kept the insane beatdown that the Filthy Animals did on Ric Flair at the end.
Oh, burying him in the desert?
Yeah. I mean, why not? Why the fuck not, right? This was the most ridiculous thing that they could have done. They have him stretched out. Like, you have this entire, oh my God, is Ric Flair okay? His son's there. He's being put on the backboard. He's being stretchered out to the ambulance. And then here come the Filthy Animals, hijacking the ambulance, beating him up a little bit, beating up David. Well, again, Tori Wilson has the video camera. I don't get the video camera thing. Were they supposed to be voyeuristic human beings? Was that part of the gimmick? Because she's videotaping that. Then they throw him in the ambulance and drive away. You have Conan, whose arm is apparently in a sling, but totally fine. You have Ray, who couldn't perform on the card because he was injured, but he's there totally fine. It was so absolutely absurd after this completely, like, gut-wrenching, is Flair going to be okay moment. And then they throw him in the fucking ambulance and take him to the desert and bury him. Yeah, that's WCW 1999, folks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. I guess, yeah, because you kind of explained already that you're just changing things up because that's kind of where we were with WCW at this point, that some of the angles that we had set up the month previous have either been blown off on Nitro or just kind of faded off, which, you know, was part and parcel to what was going on in the company. And in fact, I think most of the wrestling landscape at this time. So yeah, that's fine. As far as the match goes, I don't remember it being particularly good or particularly bad. I think it was just kind of there. Again, you know, I was happy to see Kimberly. She looked incredible this night. So I was happy to see her. And of course,
well, and this is, to me, this is like the best era of DDP, when he was just the dirtbag heel who didn't give a fuck. Like, this and Jersey Triad DDP are my favorite versions of him.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I think the People's Champion Diamond Dallas Page was a little bit long in the tooth. It went on a little bit longer than it needed to go. I kind of like the idea of him turning heel, and you know, we go back to the Spring Stampede '99 where he won the title for the first time in that four-way dance. So, you know, I'm fine with this. Yeah, I guess keep it. Sure, why not? Yeah, that's fine. And I like the fact that you kept the ending as well, in terms of literally burying Flair in the desert. I think was kind of fun. The only thing is I would have kept Flair off TV for a while and then maybe build to even a Flair runs the gauntlet kind of match where you could have Flair going up against each member of the Filthy Animals and some kind of stipulation there as well, which would have been fun. You know, at a pay-per-view, you could have one after the other.
But again, that's the thing. Like, who would be the main focus that he would have to go after? Like, who in your mind is the main eventer out of those four? Because at this time, it was none of them.
Well, no, but this is my point, though, is I think it might be fun to do an angle where you have some kind of stakes. I don't know what the stakes would be. I mean, based on WCW 1999 booking, or, you know, the landscape of the wrestling industry as a whole in 99, maybe you could do it as, you know, the prize is, you know, a night with Tori Wilson would be the prize if he goes over and beats the entire gauntlet of the Filthy Animals. So he goes one after the other. You have Flair in the ring, you send out, you know, Kidman, then he goes over Kidman, then right after that you get one after the other, and then at the end of it, that would be a way of kind of having a fun wrinkle to this feud. I don't know if I necessarily advocate that, and obviously that's not the kind of angle that you'd be able to have in 2021.
But it's not far off of what they did, though. Like, they did that whole thing where Kimberly was saying, like, 14 times, and I'm not talking about how many times you've held that belt. I'm talking about how many times you spanked my bum. Like,
no,
what?
I know, and
Like,
and
what?
so this is just so far removed from where we are as a society today. So obviously, I am talking about this in the construct of back, you know, 22 years ago, and I'm not advocating one way or the other, folks. I'm not opening that can of worms. I'm just saying that this is what was going on at the time. And so maybe that's something that you could have built to in the framework of what was going on at that time.
Oh, no, the sad thing is that it would 100% be a thing that would have happened. That video camera would have come into play, and that would have been the prize.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, right or wrong, whatever, you know, everybody has their own opinions about it. Some people look at that kind of stuff with fondness. I personally think it's, you know, I don't think it's necessary for wrestling to do stuff like that. I didn't think that when I was 15. I don't think it when I'm, you know, 38. But that's just, you know, part and parcel to what it is to be a fan, especially in this era. There's a lot of stuff between both channels that was just at this point, looking back with 2020 hindsight, you know, just in very poor taste.
Yeah. Porn star gimmicks and pimp gimmicks don't usually age very well.
No, they don't. And anyways, I don't want to make a meal out of this. We both know how we feel about it. I'm not looking at this through the lens of the sensitivity that we are currently experiencing in our culture. I just mean as a person in general. Even when I was watching this at the time, when I was 16, 17 years old, I didn't think it was entertaining at that point, and I think it's even less entertaining now. So that's all I'm trying to say.
We're not snowflakes, kids. We're just not douchebags.
There you go. I like that. That's good. Maybe that'll be our first T-shirt. I like that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know where we're going next, but the next match on the card was Goldberg defeating Sting for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. I could do my David Penzer right now if you want, but I think maybe I'll save it for another time. What do you have for me here? I don't know what is if this is the main events next or what do you have?
The next match on the card is your main event of Halloween Havoc 1999 and is scheduled for one fall. Making his way down the aisle, he is the reigning, defending, and undisputed WCW World Heavyweight Champion from Venice Beach, California, weighing in at 293 pounds, Hulk Hogan. And he is now set to defend his WCW Championship against the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. The excellence of execution, Calgary's own and future Canada Walk of Fame honoree, Bret the Hitman Hart.
I like it. I'm very relieved that this in fact happened. Now, when I booked Fall Brawl, this is obviously where I was headed. I didn't know for sure which one of us would be booking Halloween Havoc, or in fact, if we were going to be booking Halloween Havoc this year. But yeah, I'm really happy that you did this. I have to ask you though, like just a quick sidebar before we get into the booking of the match. Why do you think this match never actually happened?
Honestly, probably because Hogan knew that Bret would make him look like a fucking piece of shit and didn't want to do it. And he didn't want to be putting over somebody as small, quote unquote, as him.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I guess my only thinking is at this point in 99, I mean, obviously, I think all things being equal, it's kind of akin to the Flair Hogan match. I think if everybody could kind of go in hindsight, they would have rather have seen, you know, the first Flair Hogan match be at WrestleMania 8. The first time they were in the same company together and all that kind of thing. I think a lot of people look back on that as a head scratcher as to why it didn't happen. I think the same can be said for Bret versus Hogan. I mean, all things being equal, I would have wanted to see it at SummerSlam 93. Or, I mean, if the possibility had been there to present itself, I think the ultimate way to do it would have been maybe WrestleMania 10. You have Hogan submitting to the sharpshooter in the middle of Madison Square Garden. I obviously don't think that ever would have happened based on that doesn't work for me, brother. But, I mean, I'm so glad you booked this match just because it had to happen at some point. I think we got some version of it on a Nitro once that was, again, a run-in finish and never concluded into anything. I know they did have some matches around this time frame in canon on house shows. There, I think in the Bay Area and things of that nature, they did have a couple of Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart singles matches, which were reported to be actually quite good. But yeah, walk me through this. Tell me about how this match goes, and I'm just going to lay out here because I'm so happy that you booked this.
Well, can I confess something to you first?
Sure.
So this originally wasn't my booking at all. I I originally had the whole Sting and Hogan thing happening, where he's still laid down for him. Sting came out, did the whole shabib of how he wants a person coming out and he came here to fight and blah blah blah. And then I had Bret coming out to that. So I still had Bret going into the world title match, but it was against Sting and not Hogan. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I can't do this to you. I can't break your heart twice with the same fucking main event. So yeah, we got to Bret and Hogan. It's face versus face at this point. Like, it's red and yellow Hogan versus pink and black Bret, and they lock up in the middle of the ring. Hogan does his whole big ass test of strength pose where he throws him and he starts flexing for him. Then Bret does what he does, and he picks a body part and he starts picking it over. Starts working on the knee, starts working on the leg, does his usual leg bars, and then around the ring post figure fours, he's doing all of his signature spots. He hits the Russian leg sweep, then he hits the elbow off of the second turnbuckle. When he hits that, that leads to the ultimate Hulk up of Hulk Hogan. He is doing his whole shaking, convulsing, finger pointing, finger waving. You 1, 2, 3 punches, leg, or he goes for the big boot, hits it, goes for the leg drop. As he goes for the leg drop, Bret Hart is able to just slyly roll out, pick up the legs, put him in the sharpshooter, turn him over. Hulk Hogan submits cleanly to Bret Hart at the end of a pay-per-view.
Exactly the way it should have been. I couldn't have booked it better myself, man. I appreciate it so much. I know that was probably not your favorite match that you ever rebooked. But for me personally, I've gone on record to say that this is probably my number one match that I wish had happened that never did, that I got a chance to see on a big time scale. I think it's one of those matches. It's kind of akin to the Austin Hogan or the Goldberg Austin or whatever you want to talk about, is one of those matches that for me is the number one in my mind of a match that I think should have happened. And I think Bret Hart should have won. And I will say as well, I do think that this match, had it happened exactly the way that you described it, with the face and on face build and the Hogan Bret build maybe for a good month and a half, I do think it might have broken box office buy rates for WCW pay-per-views, certainly in 1999. I think it would have been one of the biggest pay-per-view buys they ever had in the history of that company had that match happened.
I don't know how you can argue that at all. Like, it was something that fans had been wanting to see for almost the better part of a decade at this point, and it almost was one of those ones that every time you thought you might see it, it just got taken away from you. So yeah, I completely agree with what you just said about that.
Yeah, and I think in some way, like the red and yellow Hogan versus the pink and black Bret. I mean, he was always pink and black Bret, but I feel like in a way that works better for me than the NWO Hogan. For some reason, I just feel like, I don't know, maybe to me in a way it means more when you have a face Hogan dropping the title to a face Bret than had you had a heel Hogan drop to a face Bret. I don't know. For some reason, I just think in my mind's eye, the face on face thing kind of works better for me than a heel on face thing.
Well, I mean, you can kind of attribute it to and compare it to in very different ways. Like, we all know that it wouldn't be the same work rate in any way, shape, or form, but Hogan Warrior. In 1990, when they were two of the biggest faces ever, it worked. In 1998, when it was chicken shit NWO leader Hollywood Hogan versus Warrior, who hasn't worked a regular schedule in forever, it obviously didn't. But I still think that if the match itself was fine, it wouldn't have gone over as well, because it's NWO leader taking on the Ultimate Warrior versus the leader of the Hulkamaniacs taking on the leader of the Warriors.
Yep. No, that's very fair. I think that in certain programs, the heel on face dynamic works. In fact, I would say the majority of the time it works, but every once in a while, a face on face program does work, because you can also play with the crowd psychology in the match. You can have both guys come into the match as faces and then have one person work heel during the match, but still come out as a face. So, and we've talked about this 100 times, I think, you and I, that Hogan, for the better part of his career, worked as a heel anyways, whether he was a face or a heel. He was always raking the eyes and, back rakes and all that kind of thing. So Hogan's style would have adapted well to this face-on-face encounter in 1999, because you would have had him possibly work some of those heel-like tendencies, but cloak them in the red and yellow. So, yeah. I can't say enough about this match. I'm so glad you booked it. I'm really, really happy that it's finally happened. The right guy went over, and who's to say that you wouldn't get a rematch at some point? I don't know necessarily if I'd wanted to. I think a one and done probably would have been fine with me. It's kind of like the same way I feel about Rock and Hogan. I mean, Rock and Hogan at 18 was perfect. I didn't need to see a rematch at a random No Way Out about a year later. I think that the Rock and Hogan by itself one time was perfect. And I kind of feel the same way about a Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan match. I kind of feel like that would have been perfect one time, all by itself, in a vacuum into itself, and having the right guy go over, I feel like was really good. So congratulations, man. You did a great job.
Well, thanks. It's been a little while, so I felt like I had to at least try a little bit on this one. Now, with that being said, Jay, I want to give you a fun little option. This is actually a surprise to you, so I want to see how you react to this.
Okay.
For next week, I want to give you an option. We were supposed to, all those weeks back, do In Your House triple header. Do you want to rebook that, or do you want me to give you something else to rebook for the next one?
I think I'm gonna maybe give 1995 a little respite. I think maybe
Okay.
We'll maybe get back to that next year. I feel like originally our course trajectory was to kind of finish 1995 this year, but I'm actually okay with I feel like we've done a lot of 95 this year, so let's revisit it with a fresh pair of eyes next year.
All right, that sounds good to me.
So what do you got for me? I'm very curious.
Well, then, next week you will be rebooking the WWE SmackDown only event, No Mercy, from 2003 at the Baltimore Arena. Now, if you're not familiar with this one,
Yes, I am very familiar with this one.
this is the one that has everybody's favorite Mr. McMahon taking on Stephanie McMahon in an I Quit, Loser Gets Fired match. We have winners like Zach Gowen on here, the A-Train, the Basham brothers. You've got your work cut out.
Yeah, it's amazing. I missed you for about 2 hours, and now suddenly I'm like, why?
Well, we also really haven't touched on 2003, so I thought I was going to pick 02, but I was like, well, we've done 02 a few times this year too, so let's go for the worst show.
No, that's okay. It's no problem. I'm kidding. I, of course, missed you tremendously, and I'm very glad that you're back. We did rebook the Survivor Series 2003. In fact, I did it last year. I think it was our second show in, so I'm going to have to go back and listen to that and figure out, kind of go backwards and see where I went, so I can kind of make everything make sense for Survivor Series from No Mercy. So yeah, okay, that's a challenge.
I just unintentionally gave you even more work. I didn't even realize that one.
That's okay. That's okay, because you know how much time I have on my hands these days, so I can't wait.
You got nothing but free time.
Oh yeah, but no, that'll be fun. It's fun to finally get back into the rhythm with you, man. I can't wait to touch on some delicious 2003 WWE, and specifically the SmackDown brand, because I feel like a lot of times we gravitate towards the Raw product. I think it's just kind of an autopilot for both of us. So touching on SmackDown will be fun, and I think I'll be able to come up with some pretty compelling matches for the undercard, and then, of course, rework the top of the card as well. If I'm not mistaken, there was an Undertaker Brock Lesnar chain match on this card as well. So anyhow, we will figure it out, or rather, I will figure it out, and we'll be back next week with some all-new content. I am so glad that Tyrone is back after his brief hiatus, which felt a lot longer than it really was, but I am so grateful that you are back in the saddle with me, my friend. Again, folks, we want to thank all those that helped contribute to the podcast over the last couple of weeks. Anthony from the Titantron podcast, as well as Nick from the Universal Wrestling podcast, and of course, Steve Bourne. Thank you so much for stepping in and helping us out. And we will have you all back on as guest rebookers or guests in some capacity in the next coming weeks and months. But with that being said, Tyrone, where can our listening audience find us on social media?
On Twitter at good_enemies, Facebook, Good Friends, Better Enemies Podcast, and on Instagram at good_enemies. Don't have Twitch, don't have TikTok. We're old guys. I'm sorry.
And for myself, for a returning Tyrone, for Bret Hitman Hart, for the Nature Boy Ric Flair being buried in the desert, and of course for Halloween Havoc. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention about this show. I love that Halloween Havoc set. When I was a kid, I thought it was so lame. And now I love it with the pumpkin and the graveyard. It was so cool.
Right. I thought the same thing. I'm like, okay, why can't we have cool shit like this instead of, CGI Roman Reigns looking like he's blowing his load into the crowd?
Okay.
On that note, everybody, you guys
we cannot top that, ladies and gentlemen. The Good Friends, Better Enemies podcast. Thanks you very much.
Bye, guys. Thanks for everything.